all these x-rays that I've got, that I'm getting ready to show you, I've actually got the actual x-rays from back before the digital x-rays. You know, they had to print out the x-ray and you had to put it up on the light box on the wall and look at it. And I used to carry that huge pile of x-rays with me. I got them digitized just so we could put it in a PowerPoint, but some of them did not work out very well. So I'll be skipping over several just because when we converted to digital, it just didn't work very good. So this is just basic x-rays. We kind of start at the top and go to the bottom. And I know you've had radiology already. This is going to be tips and pearls and things to remember. And then the second part of this will be purely chest x-ray. Got a couple things about chest x-ray for you to know. The main thing about radiology from my standpoint, and most people who've been around the block will tell you, is that one view is no view. That's kind of the golden rule. One view is no view. If you just got one film, it's not going to help you very much. Probably the only exception is a portable chest x-ray. If you get a portable chest x-ray, that's all you can get. And why do you get a portable chest x-ray? It's because the patient's too sick to get up out of bed and go over to the radiology department. When you get a portable chest x-ray, because the film goes in their back, the heart's bigger than it should be, and it's a suboptimal thing. So that's one time that one view is acceptable. Otherwise, one view is no view is pretty much the golden rule. Oh, I'm going to go back and show you this. It's just kind of a vague picture. But the guy who, when I was in med school, the guy who was teaching us radiology, he was preaching on one view is no view, one view is no view, one view is no view. Then the very next lecturer got up and he was talking on subtropical infectious diseases. And this was his title slide. It didn't have my name on it, subtropical infectious diseases. One of the guys in the crowd yelled out, one view is no view. So we're going to start at the hip. Here's a guy that's been shot in the hip. You'll be amazed at how much gang activity there is in Oklahoma City. There's a ton of gunshot wounds and stabbings and assaults. It got much more prominent when the Thunder came to town. When the NBA and the Thunder came to town, we had a lot more stuff. I don't know if you remember, there was 8 people that got shot outside the arena a couple years ago. I took care of all 8 of those. Haven't been going to do that now. Here's a motorcycle accident. You can see his skull is all jacked up. Another motorcycle accident, his skull is all jacked up. These are hard to recover from. The first patient I had as an intern that really made an impression on me was an Army soldier who jumped out of an airplane. His parachute only partially opened. So he came down and hit his head kind of hard. This is his x-ray. He's still alive, but not to belabor. I wonder if it helped to turn the lights down. Can we do that?
Yeah.
It's not a fancy slider, is it just a flip? I'll wake you guys up a little bit. All right, I'll see you in an hour. So you can see right here, just a little bit of a fracture. But this is one view. Let's look at the other view. Same guy. He's got what's called an eggshell fracture. Just this whole head is just kind of popped. He's got cracks everywhere. We had to load him up in an ambulance and take him from Fort Bragg to Duke. I don't think he did that. And there's really nothing to learn here. It's just a great story. I was working in the ER in San Antonio, Brooke Army Medical Center, and these guys were walking along the Riverwalk, and they looked over, and underneath the park bench was a 14-year-old girl. She was actively being raped by this man, 14-year-old girl. And this guy said, we need to go help her. And his buddy said, no, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to get involved. He said, well, I'm going to get involved. And he took a 2x4 and hit this guy in the back of the head while he was raping the girl. So this is the rapist x-rays. You can see he's got pretty nasty skull fracture there, pretty nasty skull fracture there. City of San Antonio said, well, that's assault, and they filed charges against this guy. This guy is a single father. I mean, he's a short order cook at some restaurant. He's a single father, just barely making ends meet. And now the City of San Antonio is filing charges against him for what he did. So the people of San Antonio started a kind of a GoFundMe. They started pouring money into his legal fund. He got a whole bunch of money, and then the city dropped the charges. Worked out pretty good. All right, we're talking about the lateral C-spine. We got several C-spine films to look at. And it's just too dark, I can see. So lateral C-spine films. We get a ton of C-spine films because anybody who's been in a trauma, you got to worry about their neck. I told you earlier about how to clear a C-spine. Remember, if it's non-tender and they can move it and they're not drunk, they're not intoxicated, they don't have altered mental status, you can pretty much clear it like that. But we have a whole lot of people that come in that have ancillary neck pain, whether it's from a car wreck, or football injury, or MMA, or baseball, just a ton of things. So we get a lot of lateral C-spines. The lateral C-spine film will pick up 90% of the pathology. One view is no view. You still have to get the PA view and the open mouth evaluation. But when you're looking for, to make sure that all 7 of them are there, we want to see we're going to assess the anterior vertebral line, the posterior vertebral line, the spinal laminar line. We're looking at the ring at C2, the tips of the spinous processes, soft tissue at C2, and soft tissue at C5. So those are all the things we're looking at, and this will be just common to you when we get going. 90%. Now, the best way to do this is you just have the patient laying down, they're shooting a lateral, it's called cross-table lateral, and somebody's pulling their shoulders way, way down. Somebody's at their feet holding onto their arms and pulling to get their shoulders out of the way. Some guys like me, I've got big shoulders, it's really hard to see C7. And some people will come in, they got a broken clavicle, they got a broken arm. You can't be yanking on their arms or their shoulders if they're broken. So the option is a swimmer's view. So they'll put their arm up like this and shoot through it. And then you can see C7. So that's what a swimmer's view is. So here's what we're looking for. First, you want to make sure all 7 of them are there. And the way to tell is C2 has always got this little nose, like an elephant nose right there. There's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's T1. As long as you see the top of T1, you're okay. That's what we're looking for. You want to make sure all 7 of them are there. If you don't see all 7, you're not done. You're going to have to get another X-ray. Maybe you can try a swimmer's view. We're also looking at what's called the anterior vertebral line, and that's right here. Follow my mouse here. The front of their vertebral bodies. It's just a nice, smooth, arcing line like that. That should not be disrupted. Then we're looking at the posterior vertebral line. That's the back of the posterior vertebral bodies. It's a nice, smooth, sloping line. That should not be disrupted. Then we're going to look at the spinolaminar line, and that's this. See where the spinous processes, they got a little white stripe? You line all those up, and that should be a nice, smooth, swooping line. That should not be interrupted or disrupted. Then we're going to look at the spinous processes themselves and make sure there's nothing broken at the tips. We're going to look at the vertebral bodies themselves and make sure that they're not squashed, that they're the right height. And then look at C2. This is really critical. Look at the soft tissue at C2. The soft tissue from the front of the nose. Remember, C2's got what looks like an elephant nose. From the front of this nose to the soft tissue. So that part right there. That should be less than 5 millimeters. Okay, from here to here should be less than 5. I don't carry a ruler with me, you don't carry a ruler with you, and we're talking about digital x-rays. They can zoom it up and zoom it down. A good rule of thumb is the soft tissue from here to here should be less than 5 or less than an intervertebral disc space. So it should be smaller than the space between 2 to 3. Got it? One other soft tissue we're going to look at is the C5. 2, 3, 4, 5. At the top of C5, we're looking here at this soft tissue. That should be less than 22. So it's 5 at 2 and 22 at 5. So what's the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb is the vertebral body at 5. The soft tissue in front of C5 should be less than the size of the vertebral body itself. One last thing to look at before we move on is the ring at C2. At C2, there's an intact ring right there. You see that? If that's disrupted, we're probably going to see soft tissue swelling in front of C2. It's going to be greater than 5 millimeters, and they're probably going to have a fracture. You want to look really closely at your open mouth abdomen. So here's those lines. Make sure you got all 7. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's the top of 7. You have 7. You don't really see T1, so this is probably not a very good film, but it's good because we draw the lines on it. There's the anterior vertebral line, posterior vertebral line, and the spinal line. There's a lady coming in from a car wreck. This is her first x-ray. and she has a neck collar on, so a C collar, so we're gonna try to rule her out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, anterior vertebral line, posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line, tips of the processes. I really can't see the ring at C2. Just can't comment on that. The soft tissue at 2 should be less than 5 or less than an vertebral disc space. That looks good. 2, 3, 4, 5. Soft tissue at 5 should be less than 22 or less than the vertebral body. It's getting close. What do you think? Take it off? I don't think so. We don't really see 7 there. We were shot at their 7. That should hammer home why you got to see C7. This is a 6-on-7 fracture. Subluxation. So you can see now the anterior vertebral line jacked up, posterior vertebral line jacked up, spinal laminar line, you can't really see that. Anterior vertebral line, posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line, tips of the spinous processes, soft tissue at 2. There's the ring at 2 right there. It's a nice, beautiful. 2, 3, 4, soft tissue at 5. That's a little bit generous, but I don't see anything else. Look at this one. Tell me what's wrong. First count, are there 7? All 7 are there. And what's the problem? Can you see it? What is it?
6 and 7.
Okay. There's 2. It's got the nose on it. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the posterior vertebral line is jacked up. The anterior vertebral line is jacked up. That's a fracture. You wouldn't want to miss that. What about this one? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't really see 7 very well. Anterior vertebral line. It looks like she's just old. Posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line. But look at the vertebral bodies. This one's kind of smashed. It's just not as tall as it should be. So she got a compression fracture. This is a lady that was sent in to me from a chiropractor's office. He was manipulating her neck, and then he took the x-ray. See, she got a fracture here at C2. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anterior, posterior, spinal laminar, tips, soft tissue. There's a beautiful ring right there at C2. 2, 3, 4. It's that little teardrop fracture there. I don't know what's coming when it comes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, those are all there. Anterior vertebral line looks good. Soft tissue at 2 looks good. Posterior vertebral line is fine. Anybody see anything? So look at this one. After we count all 7, look at the anterior vertebral line. It's messed up. The posterior vertebral line, it's messed up. That's bad. And now you can see the soft tissue at 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Soft tissue at 5 is really getting out there. It's swelling from the fracture. Two is way up here. 2 always has what looks like the elephant's nose. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anterior vertebral line. That's not right there. Is it? That looks like that's back a little bit. Posterior vertebral line. That's back a little bit. So that's a problem right there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Top of T1. Anterior vertebral line, posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line, where the stripes are. Tips of the spinous processes, the spinous processes themselves look good. Soft tissue at 2 looks good. It's a beautiful ring at 2, 2, 3, 4. A little bit generous soft tissue at 5, but I don't see anything else. about here? Two, three, four, five, six, seven. Top of T1, so that's good. Anterior vertebral line, it's just not as smooth and straight, but again, it's a really old person. You can see they got all these osteophytes. Posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line, tips of the spinous processes. We don't see all the tips, do we? So we just let that go? We better repeat it. That's why you gotta see it all. Now the truth is, this is probably, it's called a ligamentum nuti. It's just a little calcification back there. There's a fracture that involves C6 or C7, usually C7, it's called a Clay-Shawver's fracture. It's from back in the days when guys were actually building roads by hand and they would shovel really heavy dirt and they'd snap off that spinous process of C7. I've got one coming up here. Can't see that. Two, three, four, five, six, seven. Here's a nice little thing to look at. This is not part of the C-spine, but there's a nice little thing to look at. Look at the tongue. The tongue is here, and it comes back, and it ends right there. That's called a vallecula, where the tongue ends. And then there's a wisp of tissue right there. That's the epiglottis. And that's all that should be. It's just a little wisp of tissue. If it's bigger than that, if it's a thumb, like a thumbprint, you got yourself epiglottitis or retropharyngeal abscess or something like that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anterior line, posterior line, spinal laminar line. Can't see the tip of this spinous process here. Ring at C2 looks good. Soft tissue looks good. 2, 3. Soft tissue looks good. Ooh, look at this one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see the anterior vertebral line's jacked up. Posterior vertebral line's jacked up. 7, anterior vertebral line, posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line, ring at C2, soft tissue at 2, 2, 3, 4. Soft tissue at 5 is getting kind of big, isn't it? What do you think? You see the fracture at 6? Right there. That whole vertebral body's been fractured. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you don't see 7. Anterior vertebral line, posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line. Look at the soft tissue at 2. From here to here, that is bigger than an intervertebral disc space. And you see why? See the fracture at the tip of C2? So the soft tissue is a reflection of that. Anterior vertebral line, but look, it's jacked up. It's an atlantoaxial subluxation. Consequently, look at the soft tissue at 2. Wow. It's huge. There's a Hangman's fracture. The pedicles of C2. Posterior elements of C2. With an anterior dislocation, you can follow the anterior vertebral line and see that that's messed up. Now, the posterior vertebral line is not messed up at all, but the anterior vertebral line is. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anterior vertebral line, posterior vertebral line, spinal laminar line, soft tissue at 2, ring at 2. Lots of soft tissue swelling at 5. Anybody see anything? Yeah, it looks like right down here. Looks like a fracture down here. It's called a burst fracture. There's another fracture of the posterior elements of C2. Now here's something that's good to know. This is an adult, and this is a kid. Adult, kid. On kids, when you're doing the anterior vertebral line, a lot of times C2 will look like it's out in front of C3, like this. It looks like it's just out in front, even if you look at the posterior vertebral line. It looks like it's jacked up, right? That's okay in kids. They have what's called pseudo-subluxation of C2 and C3. How do you, now what if they actually have a fracture? How do you tell if it's pseudo-subluxation or if it's the real deal? The way you tell is to look at the spinal laminar line. If that spinal laminar line is nice and straight, then it's just pseudo-subluxation. Pretty neat little program. This is the same thing. It looks like C2, C3 subluxation, but the spinal laminar line is fine. So if this kid's got no pain, he's just here for routine stuff, you wouldn't worry about that at all. Versus an adult with a hanging structure and 2-on-3 real subluxation. Another fracture there. So that's the C spine, that's the lateral C spine. 90% of all the pathology is going to be picked up just by looking at the lateral. But we're one view is no view, so now we're going to get the open mouth odontoid. So they'll put the plate behind them or in front of them, and they'll have them open their mouth as wide as they can, and they're going to shoot right through. So here's what we're looking for. I want to make sure you know what we're looking for when we're looking at open mouth odontoid. These are called, this right here is called the lateral mass. There's a lateral mass, and there's a lateral mass. This is the base of the dens and the dens. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for pure and true symmetry. From the dens to the lateral mass, this space from the dens to the lateral mass should be exactly the same as from this side of the dens to this lateral mass. That should be equal, should be symmetrical. From down here at the base of the dens to up here should be the same space. From here to here should be the same. It should all be lined up and equal. And very, very important, look at the lateral aspect of the lateral mass. The very edge over here. That should be lined up perfectly with the very lateral part of the base of the dent. So these should line up, and these should line up. So we're looking for symmetry between the lateral masses in the dens, base of the dens and the lateral masses, and the lateral aspects of all of that. So with that in mind, what's wrong with this one? Look at the space between this dens and this lateral mass, space between this dens and this lateral mass, that's jacked up. Now, that's either a fracture or poor technique. You can have the radiologist do it again, have the technologist do it again. How about this one? These line up nicely. These line up nicely. The space between here and here is the same as here and here, but the lateral masses are not. That is short, and that is long, and that is a fracture. What about this?
The spaces are not even.
Say it again?
Spaces are not even.
Right, way out here. That's not supposed to hang over like that. Those are supposed to be lined up perfectly. This lateral mass has been out, and this lateral mass is also out. You only need one of those to say, oops, we've got some bad stuff here. What that is a burst fracture of C1. That's what the CAT scan looks like. Same thing here. See how the lateral masses hang over? So there's a fracture there somewhere. I think it's probably right here. You don't really have to find the fracture, you just have to find that it's abnormal and possible. That's all I gotta do. All right, look at this one. The lateral masses, they kind of line up nice. The space between the dens and the lateral masses, it's hard to say. What about that? Is that a fracture? No, that's a tooth. There's a tooth right there, going right around like that. Don't let that fool. Recognize that now? See the anterior vertebral line and the posterior vertebral line are messed up? Everybody got that, right? Skip this one. See the abnormality here? It took me a while. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anterior vertebral line is good. Posterior vertebral line is good. Spinal laminar line is good, tips of the spinous processes, oops. This is that clay shoveler's fracture that we're talking about. That's not calcified ligament and nuki, that is a clay shoveler's fracture. Then you get a third view, is the PA view, or AP view. It doesn't really help very much. One thing you can look for is the steeple sign to see if they've got croup or something like that. You just mostly look for symmetry. Make sure everything is lined up the way it's supposed to be. I don't think I've ever found a fracture on this view that I didn't see on the other. It's just, it's more to be complete than anything else. So we talked about how to clinically clear C-spine already. If they're awake and alert, they're not drunk, and they're not intoxicated, you can take off their collar, poke on their neck, say, hold perfectly still, I'm gonna poke on your neck. Does that hurt? Does that hurt? Does that hurt? If they say no, 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 then you say, okay, pick your head up off the bed and put your chin on your chest, but stop if it hurts. If they can do that, and they're not drunk, and they don't have altered mental status, you can clear their C-spine. This is just a story from OU. We had a patient came in, a trauma patient that just had a huge belly. But it was a guy. And clearly he wasn't pregnant. It was just full of air, full of air. So we asked the nurse to put an NG tube down, and then we got our C-spine fills. The NG tube went down and up and down and up and down and up and down, and it never actually went into the stomach. It just kinked on itself. Guy's belly never did get decompressed. But the C-spine looks okay. Oh, I'm so sad we can't see this. This is a 70-something-year-old lady who came in with a sore throat. She had epiglottitis. You follow the tongue back to where it stops, and right there is a big thumbprint. It's really beautiful. I can't see it on my monitor. Can you see it?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, that was beautiful. This is another one that's supposed to be an epiglottitis. You follow the tongue back and it's another thumb. Look at this one. Follow the tongue back, the tongue to the back to the Vilecki. Look at that. That's almost a retropharyngeal abscess there. That's huge. All right, I'm going to move on from the neck to the face. Faces, for some reason, students have a lot of trouble with faces. I had a lot of trouble with faces. There's just so many bones, but mostly we're looking for symmetry. Look for symmetry and make sure everything lines up and there's no cracks. But also look for symmetry of the sinuses. In this case, for instance, this is a guy who got punched in the face. Look at this maxillary sinus versus this maxillary sinus. This one here is opacified, it's full of blood. That should make you really, really look for a fracture somewhere around here, because what made this fill up with blood? Probably a fracture. In fact, there is a fracture right here. There's a view called the jug handle view. It's called submental vertex. It's here. And now you can see his fracture. That didn't show very good at all. But on the real film, you can see it very good. This is one of my favorite films of all time. This is a little girl that I took care of. Same story, fell out of the swing. Mom brought her and said she fell out of the swing and she hurts, her leg hurts. Her leg seems to be very tender. This is her x-ray. What do you think about her x-ray? Anybody?
One side's a lot lower than the other.
One side's more forward than the other?
Lower.
Yeah, that's a good point. This leg looks longer. Maybe that's just the way she was made. Maybe she got short leg syndrome. Anything else? Can you guys see this stripe right here? Oh, come on. There's a white stripe. It's much whiter right there. You can, I can see it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a white stripe. Golden rule. One view is no view, right? Same girl, new view.
Oh, wow.
Everything lined up perfectly. That white stripe is where the two bones are on top of each other.
Oh,
So it turned out to be a child abuse case. But that's one of my favorite films of all time. Not because as a kid we got beat up. It sure drives home the point. One view is no view. Talk about looking at hands and specifically fight bites. You know, if a guy gets mad and punches the wall, I never understand that. They come in with what could be a broken hip, and usually a little cut there from where they hit the wall. If you're seeing people, you're going to see people like this, I promise you. No matter where you work, you're going to see people like this. it's critical to ask them if they actually punch somebody in the face. It's called a fight bite. If you punch somebody in the face and you get a tooth inoculated in there, it's really big. The deal is you got your hand in a fist, and then you punch somebody, and the tooth goes in and makes a cut. And then what do? They open up their hand, and the bacteria gets drawn back here. I worked at Houston, at Ben Taub, at the trauma center there. Every single person that got a fight bite had to be admitted. No matter how bad it was, they got admitted for IV antibiotics. But these guys won't admit that, because they think you're gonna call the cops. They won't admit that they punched their wife or they punched somebody. So they'll just say they punched the wall. If they just punched the wall, it's cool, you can get an x-ray and send them home. But sit them down, get alone and say, man, it's really important. Did you punch somebody in the face? Is this a tooth? If this is from a tooth, I'm not gonna call the cops, but if this is from a tooth, it's a totally different story. Yeah, I punched somebody. Okay. So here's a fight bite. It's already starting to swell. It really needs to be admitted in these IV antibiotics. If you don't admit it, you don't get antibiotics, it goes on to get infected like that. Because that bacteria gets drawn back into the deep space of the hand. You can lose your hand from this. You can actually lose your life if you get septic from this. That's just a really bad, it's just all pussed out. Look at that. Went so far, they had to fillet it open, clean it out, all from a little fight bite. I don't know if you guys know who Dr. Kaufman is. He's an ER doctor at St. Anthony's. Who's one of my residents a long, long time ago. He sent me this x-ray when I was at OU. He said, Lovelace, you gotta have this x-ray. Same story, this guy punched the wall, and this is his x-ray. What do you think? Send him home?
Another view.
One view is no view. Very good. Same guy, new view. Just like the femur, everything lined up perfectly. See this little lucency right there? You know, usually you're looking for a break in the cortex. And there's a little lucency there, and a teeny tiny little lucency there, teeny tiny. I'm not impressed by those, but on another view, dang, he's fractured all three of those bones. Now I'm impressed. So again, one view is no view. It's really easy to see this guy got shot. He got a bullet in his arm, he's complaining. But what wasn't initially obvious, and because the PA that was working it didn't do a really good physical exam, what wasn't obvious was, where did this bullet come from? It actually went in through his little finger, tore up the finger, and then got lodged in the soft tissue. And this is my all-time favorite. This is in San Antonio. This guy comes in, he's 82. He comes in and I see him. I'm working at the orthopedic ER as a resident, and I see him. He said, oh, I was out on the golf course and my ankle started to swell. We look at him, he's got a swell. Does it hurt? No, it doesn't really hurt. I just thought I might have it checked out. Doesn't hurt at all? No, it doesn't hurt at all. So, you want an x-ray? Doesn't hurt at all. You should say yes just because that's what we're talking about, is x-rays. And I went to the resident that was my supervisor and said, do I need to get an x-ray? He said, yeah, you do. So here's his x-ray. I think there's another. Okay. This is called a Charcot joint. The description of a Charcot joint is a bag of bones. There's no definition. So you get this from diabetes with a neuropathy or from syphilis. The pathology is they got a neuropathy, and they just don't feel pain. If you and I go out shopping and our ankle starts to hurt, what do? We limp, we kind of favor it, and give it a chance to get better. He never feels anything. So he doesn't limp, he doesn't ever give it a chance. He still goes golfing every day. And just tore up this ankle. And all you do is give him some Motrin for the swelling. Charcot joint. Lady who fell off her horse. This is a dislocated elbow. This is a real emergency. This is something you don't want to triage out to the waiting room. You want to check their pulses, check their radial and ulnar pulses, make sure they're neurovascularly okay, and get that reduced right away. again in San Antonio, this guy came in and said, I'm a Vietnam vet and I need my Norcos, my arm surgeon. And this was a long time after Vietnam. Look at his arm, I don't really see anything. You want an x-ray? We're in radiology, you might as well say you have an x-ray. Here's his x-ray. Said he was in Vietnam and he had a grenade blow up on him. And he had surgery on his arm. He's got some metal hardware and you can see all that. But what you don't see until I point it out to you is look at all this soft tissue he has. He has necrotizing fasciitis. And you end up losing his arm. Kind of be on the lookout for any sub-Q area that's not supposed to be here. This is a fractured hip. It's right here. The little lady fell on her hip. A good thing to know about hip fractures is you've got two hips to look at. You can look at both sides. And look for what's called Shenton's line. It's here. From this top of this ring, you should be able to just draw a nice loop like that that comes down. It shouldn't look like a cleft note or anything like that. It should just be a nice line that goes around. We've got some other examples here. So if you look for Shenton's line here, that is not right. There's clearly a fracture here. Common intertrope. Here's another one. Shenton's line is all jacked up. Another fracture, subtrope. Shenton's line, messed up again. It's a transcervical fracture, which is right here. Shenton's line, ooh, that is really messed up. And it's a posterior dislocation. Shenton's line is not too bad until you get down to here. You can see he's got an intertrope. It's like also a subtrope fracture. So now we're going to go to chest x-rays. And I've got my own system that I use for chest x-rays that I developed a long time ago. It's called the System of the S's. I think there's about 10 things that start with S that I look for. And every single one of them, I'll just go through them really quick. The first S is the signature. You want to make sure that you're looking at your patient's chest x-ray. Don't waste any time. And they always have the little emblem that says the patient's name. So if your patient is Mary Jane, and this is John Doe's x-ray, you're done. You don't have to look at it anymore. Make sure that matches up. You might look at the date, make sure it's today's x-ray and not a previous x-ray. The skeletal system, you want to look at the clavicles, the ribs, the scapula, as much of the shoulders and the cervical spine that you can see. Make sure there's not a orthopedic problem that you're going to let go unidentified. If you look at the x-ray, you're kind of responsible for everything that's on the x-ray. You want to look at all the soft tissues, make sure there's no foreign bodies, there's no air where it's not supposed to be. You want to look at the subdiaphragmatic areas underneath the diaphragm. Make sure there's no free air under there. You want to look at the sulci, the gutters. Make sure those are sharp and clean and there's no evidence of any effusion. You want to look at the size of the heart. Is it the right size? Is it large? Look at the shape of the heart. Is it the right size? Is it the right shape or is it a new shape? Look at the spaces, the interspaces between the ribs. And the way I do it is I'll just hold one finger on the right, one finger on the left and go down. And just compare it all the way down. You'd be amazed at what you can find just doing that. Look for a steeple sign. That's in the neck where the trachea gets narrowed. Just look at all the little squiggles in there to see if there's any kind of evidence of curved bead lines or any kind of infiltrates. And then look at the stymie, the mediastinum. Is it widened bigger than it should be? Is there any kind of problem there that would indicate an aortic aneurysm or dissection or something like that? So, just to move this mouse is really medium and mouse pad. Skeletal system. Look at the clavicles, look at all the ribs. If there's any humerus or shoulders you can see, look for those. Look at the soft tissue. There's not a whole lot of soft tissue to look at. Look at the subdiaphragmatic area. Look at the sulci, the gutters. This one actually over here is cut off. You'd like to be able to see that. Look for a steeple sign. I don't see that. Look at the size of the heart, the shape of the heart. Then do your look at your interspaces. Does this look like this? Does this look like this? Does this look like this? Go all the way down. How do you tell if an X-ray is over-penetrated or under-penetrated? Do you know? If it's over-penetrated, it's going to be way, way black. And if it's under-penetrated, it's going to be way, way white. The way to know is to look at the intervertebral disc spaces in the thoracic spine. You should just barely be able to see the intervertebral disc spaces. I can see this one and this one. I really can't see that one very well. I can't see that. So there's a penetration problem with this one. Here's one with a pneumothorax. Teeny tiny line right there. What I'm always, the last thing I do when I'm looking at x-ray is say, oh, let's go look for pneumothorax. On the lateral, man, the laterals are so easy. And for some people make it so hard, but they're really so easy. You look at the precardial fat space, there should be a little air here. Retrocardiac fat space, there should be a little air here. And now we're going to look at the T-spine, right here, the T-spine. And man, this is just so cool. It starts off very, very white, and it gets blacker and blacker and blacker. So white, blacker, 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 all the way. You should follow that pattern all the way down. If all of a sudden down here, you've got a really white vertebra, that's an infiltrate. It's so easy. Just look to see, does it go blacker, 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 blacker. Like this one. Blacker, 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 blacker. Fat space, fat space. That's all I'm done. I'm done with that lateral. All right. This is a trauma patient. Just to save time, I'll show. Notice that there's two ET tubes here. There's one in the esophagus, and there's one in the trachea. Intubated once by the paramedics and then once by the ER doc. I don't know who got it right. One of them got it wrong, one of them got it right. This is not one you'd want the attorney to find. And there's a pneumothorax here. See the pneumothorax, and the mediastinum is shifted, so this is a tension pneumothorax. Remember, what is it about a tension pneumothorax that kills you? It's not that your lung is collapsing, you're not breathing. You can take out a lung. The problem is the pressure differential. If you imagine me holding a garden hose and it's got water flowing to it. If I want to stop that water and stop watering the garden, you just kink the hose, right? And it'll stop. That's what happens to the vena cava. When the mediastinum swings over in response to tension pneumothorax, the vena cava gets kinked, and now normal blood is coming into the heart. Just like kinking a garden hose. So it's so easy to fix. You just take a needle up here in the second intercostal space and poke it. You have pressure release, everything swings back, that vena cava becomes unkinked, and the blood flows back. This has nothing to do with X-ray. Here's one you may never see, but if you do, I don't want you to miss it. This film has been copied so many times that the pathology is right here. This is a pneumomediastinum. It's that little strip of air inside the mediastinum. That's usually from blunt trauma, football players. This is a snap on the gown, don't worry about that. As you do the whole system, you're looking at the signature, subdiaphragmatic areas, the sulci, the skeletal system, the soft tissue, the spaces, the size of the heart, the shape of the heart. As I go down, looking this side to this side, this side to this side, this side to this side, look at here, this side to this side, there's something there. It's either a pneumonia or a cancer, something like that. You got to use your clinical skills to decide what that is. That is not supposed to be there compared to this side. All right, mom brings us in this kid that says he's got a slight fever and he's coughing. What do you think?
It's a lesion on the right overhead.
Very good. There's something right here. You call it a lesion, I call it a fracture. That's a fractured rib. What you're calling a lesion is actually callus formation. It's starting to heal. So how come this kid's got a fractured rib? Maybe we should do a tomogram. It's called a tomogram or a Bucky shot, where we hone in on just that area. Let's do that. Oh, there's another fracture. Different stages of healing. That's challenges. Good call. You can see there's something out here that's not supposed to be here. This film didn't copy very well. See the problem here?
Dissection.
Yeah, it's a dissection. Very good. It's a wide mediastinum. This stuff's not supposed to be out here. This is the aorta. This is dissecting. That's bad. It's a pneumothorax. Notice the absence of any lung markings in here. Have you guys learned how to identify the middle lobes and the upper lobes on the lateral? Right? That's what the middle lobe looks like on the lateral. It looks kind of kind of like a piece of pie. On the PA view and the AP view, it's going to obliterate the heart border. So if you see an infiltrate that obliterates the heart border on this view, it's going to be right middle lobe. If it doesn't obliterate the right heart border, it's going to be probably lower lobe. You'll be able to get your lateral and see where it is on the lateral, if the patient's able to stand up and get the lateral. This one, you can't really, this is somebody with a cough, fever. Maybe something here, but it's not much different from this side. On the real film, before I copied it, made it into digital, there's a little bit of fluffiness behind the heart. Remember, there's some lung behind the heart, the retrocardiac area, where you just can't see very good. So that's why we got the lateral. If you look, blacker, 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 oops, it's white again. That's a retrocardiac infiltrate. Blacker, 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 white. Can't see it. What about this? Somebody with cough, shortness of breath, and a fever. Blacker, 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 oh my God. It's a huge infiltrate. It's not right middle lobe. Remember, right middle lobe is like a piece of pie. It's either the right or the left lower lobe. It is right lobe. Right heart border is still preserved. It's another way to know for sure. If you can't get a lateral, that's not right middle. Right middle would obliterate the heart border. See this one here? Blacker, 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 but there's your piece of pie. Right there. So that's got to be right middle lobe, and it lowers the heart border. Yeah, let's get that. Wow, we'll point it out. There's air inside the pericardial sac, pneumal pericardial. Right middle lobe, looks like a piece of pie, obliterates the heart. Complete atelectasis of the left lobe. I almost got in really big trouble one day. Working at Presbyterian, I had a patient who came in with something like this, and I thought, oh, it's a pneumothorax, he needs a chest tube. Not a pneumothorax, it's a big pleb. Can you imagine putting a chest tube into that? Would not have been well for me. So how do you know that's not a pneumothorax? Pneumothorax should follow a line like this, not a line like that. Here's a pneumothorax. See how that line goes like that? Real quick, let's talk about acute abdominal series. It's always three views. You know what the three views for an abdominal series are? It's a flat plate, it's an upright, and you have to get a chest. And you get the chest mostly to be able to evaluate the subdiaphragmatic areas and make sure there's no free air. It has to be an upright chest. So this is the flat plate, and this is the upright. Notice the air fluid levels. Signifying an obstruction. This is probably an ileus. Notice the stair-stepping air fluid levels all the way up. That's an ileus. Getting abdominal films for this lady with abdominal pain, but oh, look at that. Her femur's getting eaten away. She got something bad now. That was just, oh, by the way. This is what gallstones look like. I think Scott's talking about that this afternoon. There they are. They look like little pearls in the right of the ball. Here's a good one. This is from Hawaii. It's a 6-year-old kid who came into the emergency department with fever and abdominal pain. His white count was 14,000. So he got a flat plate and an upright. And I don't see the Murphy symbol for it, was just flat. Don't see any obvious air fluid levels. Don't see any obvious obstruction or ileus. So I didn't see this kid. But so he was sent home. Came back the next day much, much sicker. So here's is, they didn't do a chest x-ray, which is really should be a part of an abdominal series. They didn't do a chest, but look up here. You can kind of see the chest. What the heck is all that? I would be suspicious that he's got pneumonia. But now comes the chest x-ray. Do you see a pneumonia? Not really, but yeah, you do. Look behind the heart here. That's just like a big old mass behind the heart. I hope the next one's a lateral. Please God, let this next one be a lateral. Nope. Oh, this is another repeat. We're looking at the abdominal films again. It still looks like an infiltrated. Still looks like an infiltrated retrocardiac. I guess it just didn't get the lateral, but there is an infiltrated. This is called thumbprinting along the colon. This is not stuff I really want to talk about. Air fluid levels. Looks like a coin stacked up on itself. Suggests a mechanical obstruction. This is a cecal volvulus. The way I remember cecal volvulus is it looks like a boxing glove, where this is the thumb, and this is the rest of the boxing glove. I think I have another one here that looks more like a boxing glove. Cecal volvulus. And this is one, they threw up the films. I saw this girl, 70-year-old girl with abdominal pain. This is her flat plate and her upright. Do you see anything bad on it? It looks weird is what it is. She was too sick to stand up, so they, instead of getting an upright, they did a left lateral PQ. So if you look at this and imagine that she's on her left side, now she does indeed have air fluid levels. This is labeled as an upright, but it's actually a left lateral PQ. So you see she does have air fluid levels. So if they put something up like this, think to yourself, what the heck am I looking at? This is not right. You can ask the patient, did they lay you down? Did they make you stand up? You can ask the tech, what did you do? You should label this left lateral PQ as opposed to upright. Here's the problem here, subdiaphragmatic ear. Now hopefully, very soon, this will just jump out at you. Anytime there's subdiaphragmatic ear, free air to the diaphragm, and that is always a bad thing. And it always looks like this. It's a little thin stripe. Free air into the diaphragm. Here it is again, free air into the diaphragm. Here it is again, free air into the diaphragm. Free air into the diaphragm. Not free air into the diaphragm. Anybody know what this is? In Texas, they call it telepedes, but it's chyloiditis. The colon is actually just stuck up against the colon, against the diaphragm, giving the appearance of free air, but it doesn't have a stripe like this. It's more like this. So don't be fooled by that. And first time I ever saw it, I thought, oh, what am I going to do? And I've actually found some old films. It's made me feel a lot better. Chyloiditis, and here's another example of chyloiditis. It doesn't have that impression of free air into the diaphragm. Here's another one. It doesn't have that nice, smooth, meniscus surface at the bottom. Anybody see anything wrong with this? This is a man with abdominal pain. It was much more impressive on the real x-rays. But at the same time, this is what looks like a baby, which is aortic aneurysm. And I got a lateral view. There's his L spine. There's his aortic. This guy's about to die. What's the slideshow without the proverbial vibrator? This is you've seen this a ton. Almost once a week we'll see somebody that lost their vibrator. This is 1, 2, 3 D cells. This is really, really big. This is a guy from Tinker Air Force Base. Recognize the boxing glove? Cecal volvulus. Looks like a boxing glove. There's another aortic dissection. This will be the last thing we talk about today. You guys know what Throckmorton sign is? Everybody know it? I didn't think they were teaching it. This is a long time ago. Well, it's almost politically not correct to say it, but it's something you need to know. Throckmorton sign is that the penis points to the side of the knee. So if a guy has a right knee pain, when you take an x-ray, just incidentally his penis will be pointing to the right side. Or you got a left ankle pain, his penis will be pointing to the left. It's just totally silly. It's just silly. But old docs still talk about, oh, he's got a positive Throckmorton, like that. And it used to be everybody looked for the Throckmorton sign just to see if it was accurate. Well, I came across this one. And so I made it up. I said, well, this is a guy with a dollar. This is Throckmorton's at his finest. So everybody laughs just like that. This is Throckmorton's at his finest. But I was given this lecture. I actually had the film, so I put them up on the view box. I was given this lecture, and I noticed one of the nurses came up and started looking at the name on the X-ray. So I gave the film to the tech and said, please put my name on there. So now it says Larry Lovelace on there. So the next nurse that picks it up and looks at it is really going to be embarrassed. All right, we'll take a 10-minute break.